Seth Rollins' WWE career is over, and the reason Triple H fired him will make you absolutely furious. After years of loyalty, sacrifice, and carrying the company on his back, the Monday Night Messiah has been stripped of everything and thrown out like garbage, and the backstage politics that led to this betrayal are more disgusting than you could ever imagine. This isn't just about creative differences or contract disputes. This is about a systematic campaign to destroy one of WWE's biggest stars because he dared to question Triple H's leadership and expose the corruption that's rotting the company from within. The evidence of what really happened backstage is so damning that WWE is desperately trying to cover it up, but the truth is finally coming out. Seth Rollins was called into Triple H's office at 11:47 p.m. last Tuesday night, thinking he was going to discuss upcoming storylines. Instead, he walked into an ambush that had been planned for weeks. What happened in that room over the next 43 minutes will go down as one of the most vicious character assassinations in WWE history. They didn't just fire me, Seth revealed in an exclusive interview just hours after his termination. They tried to destroy everything I've built, everything I've worked for, everything I am as a person. Triple H didn't just take my job, he tried to take my soul. The official reason given for Seth's termination was conduct detrimental to the company, but sources inside WWE reveal that the real reason is far more sinister. Seth Rollins discovered something about Triple H's business dealings that could potentially destroy WWE's relationship with major sponsors and trigger federal investigations. Seth found out about the money, revealed a high-ranking WWE executive who spoke on condition of anonymity. He discovered where millions of dollars were really going, and when he tried to address it through proper channels, Triple H decided he was too dangerous to keep around. The financial irregularities that Seth uncovered involve a complex web of shell companies, inflated vendor contracts, and mysterious payments to Triple H's personal associates. According to sources, Seth accidentally stumbled across internal documents that showed systematic embezzlement on a scale that could bankrupt the company if fully exposed. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars that can't be properly accounted for, the executive continued. Money that was supposed to go to wrestler healthcare, venue improvements, and production costs was being diverted to companies that existed only on paper. Seth wasn't supposed to see those documents, but once he did, Triple H knew he had to be silenced. The confrontation in Triple H's office was reportedly explosive, with both men saying things that permanently destroyed any possibility of reconciliation. Multiple sources describe it as the most heated argument in WWE headquarters history, with security personnel stationed outside the door afraid that it might escalate to physical violence. You could hear them screaming at each other from 3 offices away, revealed one WWE employee who was working late that night. Seth was demanding answers about the financial discrepancies, and Triple H was basically telling him to mind his own business or face the consequences. It got so intense that people were genuinely worried someone was going to get hurt, but the argument wasn't just about money. Seth also confronted Triple H about the systematic mistreatment of wrestlers, the manipulation of storylines for personal benefit, and the toxic culture that has developed under Triple H's leadership. What he revealed during that confrontation paints a picture of WWE as a company that has lost all connection to its stated values. Seth told Triple H that he'd become everything that was wrong with the old WWE regime, revealed another source familiar with the confrontation. He accused him of using his position to settle personal vendettas, of punishing wrestlers who wouldn't kiss his ring, and of turning WWE into his personal kingdom where only loyalty mattered more than talent. Triple H's response was swift and brutal. Rather than addressing Seth's concerns or attempting to find a resolution, he immediately moved to destroy Seth's career in the most comprehensive way possible. The termination wasn't just about ending Seth's employment, it was about making sure he could never work in the wrestling industry again. Triple H didn't just fire Seth, explained a legal source familiar with the termination. He loaded the termination with so many restrictive clauses and legal threats that it would be almost impossible for Seth to work for any other wrestling company without facing years of litigation. It was designed to end his career completely, not just his time with WWE. The timing of Seth's termination is particularly suspicious given that he was scheduled to meet with federal investigators next week about the financial irregularities he'd discovered. His firing conveniently eliminates WWE's most credible internal witness to potential criminal activity. The timing isn't coincidental, explained one legal expert familiar with white-collar crime investigations. When companies fire whistleblowers right before they're supposed to testify or provide evidence, it's usually an attempt to discredit their testimony by making them appear to be disgruntled former employees rather than credible witnesses. But Seth Rollins isn't going quietly. His response to the termination has been to compile a comprehensive dossier of evidence documenting not just the financial irregularities, but also a pattern of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation that he witnessed during his time with WWE. Seth has receipts for everything, revealed a source close to the former champion. Text messages, emails, financial documents, recorded conversations. He's been documenting Triple H's behavior for months because he knew something like this might happen. Now he's preparing to release everything, and it's going to be devastating for WWE's reputation. The evidence Seth has compiled reportedly includes proof that Triple H has been systematically blacklisting wrestlers who question his authority, manipulating storylines to benefit his personal friends, and using company resources for personal projects that have nothing to do with WWE's business interests. Triple H has been running WWE like it's his personal fiefdom, the source continued. Wrestlers who cross him get buried in meaningless storylines or released entirely. Meanwhile, his friends get pushed to the moon regardless of their talent level. Seth has documentation of all of this, including internal memos that explicitly outline the retaliation policies. Perhaps most damaging is Seth's evidence of how Triple H has been manipulating WWE's financial reporting to hide his questionable spending. According to sources, Seth discovered that millions of dollars in production costs were actually payments to companies owned by Triple H's associates for services that were never actually provided. The financial fraud is extensive, revealed an accounting expert who has reviewed some of Seth's evidence. We're talking about fake invoices for equipment that was never purchased, consulting fees paid to companies that did no actual work, and travel expenses that were clearly personal rather than business-related. If this evidence is accurate, it could result in federal charges. The retaliation against Seth began immediately after his termination became public. WWE has reportedly been contacting other wrestling promotions to discourage them from hiring Seth, using a combination of legal threats and promises of future business relationships to ensure that no one will give him an opportunity. WWE is actively trying to blackball Seth from the entire industry, revealed one independent wrestling promoter who was contacted by WWE officials. They're making it clear that hiring Seth would result in WWE cutting off all business relationships and potentially pursuing legal action. It's an obvious attempt to destroy his career completely, but the intimidation campaign extends beyond just wrestling promotions. Seth has reported that he's been receiving threatening phone calls and emails since his termination, messages that suggest someone is monitoring his activities and warning him to stay quiet about what he knows. They're trying to scare him into silence, revealed a source close to Seth. The messages aren't directly threatening violence, but they're clearly meant to intimidate him and his family. It's psychological warfare designed to make him think twice about going public with his evidence. The impact on Seth's family has been devastating. His wife and children have been subjected to harassment and online attacks from accounts that appear to be coordinated by WWE's social media team. The attacks are designed to isolate Seth by making his family suffer for his decision to speak out. They're going after his kids, revealed the source with obvious disgust. Posting their school information online, spreading rumors about his wife, creating fake social media profiles to harass his family members. It's sick, and it shows just how far Triple H is willing to go to protect himself. WWE's official response to Seth's termination has been carefully crafted by their legal and public relations teams, but sources inside the company reveal that there's panic at the highest levels about what Seth might reveal and how much evidence he actually has. There are emergency meetings happening daily, revealed a WWE corporate insider. Executives are going through old emails and documents trying to figure out what Seth might have copies of, and legal teams are preparing for the worst-case scenario. Everyone knows that if Seth releases everything he has, it could destroy the company. The financial markets have already begun reacting to rumors about Seth's termination and the potential scandal behind it. WWE's stock price has dropped significantly since news of the firing broke, and several major investors have reportedly been asking pointed questions about the company's financial oversight procedures. When investors start hearing rumors about financial fraud and whistleblower retaliation, they get nervous very quickly, explained one financial analyst who covers WWE. The stock price drop suggests that people are taking these rumors seriously and are concerned about what might be revealed. Perhaps most telling is the reaction from other WWE wrestlers, many of whom have expressed private support for Seth while being careful not to risk their own careers by speaking publicly. The fear among the roster is palpable, as everyone knows that challenging Triple H's authority could result in similar treatment. Everyone's walking on eggshells, revealed one current WWE performer who spoke anonymously. Seth was one of the most protected guys in the company, and if they could destroy him this easily, none of us are safe. People are scared to even discuss what happened because they're afraid it might get back to management. The culture of fear that has developed under Triple H's leadership extends beyond just wrestlers to include writers, producers, and other creative personnel. Multiple sources describe an environment where questioning authority or suggesting alternatives to Triple H's vision is seen as career suicide. It's like working for a dictator, explained one former WWE writer who left the company shortly after Seth's termination. Triple H doesn't want collaboration or creative input, he wants total obedience. Anyone who tries to push back or suggest different approaches gets labeled as difficult and gradually pushed out. The evidence that Seth has compiled reportedly includes recordings of meetings where Triple H explicitly discusses his plans to clean house of anyone who doesn't show complete loyalty to his vision for the company. These recordings could prove devastating in any legal proceedings. Seth was smart enough to document everything, revealed a source familiar with his evidence collection. He has audio recordings of Triple H talking about getting rid of problem wrestlers and making examples of people who don't fall in line. It's going to be very difficult for Triple H to deny his own words. The international implications of this scandal are also significant, as WWE's business relationships with companies around the world could be jeopardized if evidence of financial fraud becomes public. Several international partners have reportedly been asking questions about WWE's corporate governance procedures. When you're doing business internationally, your partners expect certain standards of financial transparency and ethical behavior, explained one international business consultant. If WWE becomes associated with financial fraud and retaliation against whistleblowers, it could cost them millions in lost international revenue. The timing of this scandal is particularly damaging for WWE, which has been trying to position itself as a mainstream entertainment company worthy of inclusion in major media portfolios. The revelation of internal corruption and toxic management practices directly contradicts that carefully crafted image. This is exactly the kind of scandal that makes mainstream media companies nervous about doing business with WWE, explained one media industry insider. They've been working hard to distance themselves from their reputation as a chaotic, unprofessional organization, and this situation brings all those old concerns flooding back. SETH's legal team has reportedly been assembling a case that could include charges of wrongful termination, retaliation against a whistleblower, defamation, and conspiracy to interfere with his ability to earn a living. The potential damages could be enormous, particularly if they can prove that Triple H acted with malicious intent. This isn't just about getting Seth his job back, explained one legal expert familiar with the case. This is about holding Triple H and WWE accountable for a pattern of illegal behavior that has harmed multiple people over many years. Seth might be the catalyst, but he's not the only victim. The evidence of systematic retaliation against other wrestlers is particularly damaging for WWE's legal position. Seth's documentation reportedly includes proof that dozens of performers have been punished professionally for personal or political reasons that had nothing to do with their job performance. The pattern of retaliation is extensive and well documented, revealed a source familiar with Seth's evidence. Writers who disagreed with storylines, wrestlers who questioned booking decisions, executives who raised concerns about financial practices, all of them faced professional consequences that were clearly retaliatory. Perhaps most shocking is Seth's evidence about how Triple H has been using WWE's resources to investigate and gather intelligence on wrestlers and employees who he considers threats to his authority. This surveillance operation included monitoring social media accounts, tracking personal relationships, and even conducting background investigations on family members. It's like something out of a corporate espionage thriller, revealed one source who has seen portions of Seth's evidence. Triple H has been treating WWE employees like potential enemies who need to be monitored and controlled rather than valued team members. The level of paranoia and surveillance is genuinely disturbing. The psychological impact on WWE's workforce has been severe, with multiple employees reporting symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression related to the toxic work environment. Some have sought professional help to deal with the trauma of working under such conditions. People are genuinely damaged by what they've experienced, explained one mental health professional who has treated multiple WWE employees. When you're constantly afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, when you're living under surveillance and threats of retaliation, it takes a severe toll on your mental health. The cover-up attempt following Seth's termination has been as damaging as the original misconduct. WWE officials have reportedly been contacting journalists, podcasters, and social media influencers to discourage them from covering the story, using a combination of access promises and legal threats. They're trying to control the narrative by intimidating anyone who might report on what really happened, revealed one wrestling journalist who was contacted by WWE's legal team. They're making it clear that anyone who covers Seth's story will lose access to WWE events and interviews, and they're also threatening legal action for spreading false information. But the intimidation campaign has backfired, as the aggressive attempts to suppress the story have only increased interest and convinced more people that there must be something significant to hide. The Streisand effect is in full play, with each attempt to silence discussion only generating more attention. When companies start threatening journalists and trying to suppress legitimate news stories, it usually means they have something serious to hide, observed one media ethics expert. WWE's heavy-handed response to this situation is actually making the story bigger and more credible. The impact on WWE's corporate culture will likely be felt for years, regardless of how this specific situation is resolved. The message sent by Seth's termination, that questioning authority or exposing misconduct will result in career destruction, has created an environment where problems are hidden rather than addressed. When employees are afraid to speak up about problems, those problems don't go away, they just get worse, explained one organizational psychology expert. WWE has created a culture where covering up mistakes and protecting leadership is more important than actually solving problems or treating employees fairly. The evidence Seth has compiled about WWE's financial practices could potentially trigger investigations by multiple federal agencies, including the SEC, FBI, and IRS. The complexity and scale of the alleged fraud would likely require a multi-agency approach to fully investigate. This isn't just about one person embezzling money, explained one former federal investigator familiar with corporate fraud cases. If Seth's evidence is accurate, we're looking at a systematic scheme to defraud investors, evade taxes, and misappropriate corporate resources. That would require the full attention of federal law enforcement. The international aspects of WWE's business could also complicate any investigation, as some of the alleged financial irregularities involve transactions with companies in multiple countries. This could potentially bring international law enforcement agencies into the investigation. When financial fraud crosses international borders, it becomes much more complex to investigate and prosecute, explained one expert in international financial crime. But it also means that the penalties can be much more severe, and extradition issues could come into play if key figures try to flee the country. The damage to Triple H's personal reputation may be irreversible, regardless of whether he faces criminal charges. The evidence Seth has compiled paints a picture of someone who has systematically abused his position of power for personal gain while destroying the careers of anyone who threatened his authority. Even if Triple H somehow avoids criminal prosecution, his reputation in the wrestling industry is permanently damaged, observed one industry veteran. Nobody's going to want to work with someone who has demonstrated this level of vindictiveness and corruption. His career as a wrestling executive is probably over. The ripple effects throughout the wrestling industry are already being felt, as other promotions and companies reassess their business relationships with WWE and consider whether they want to be associated with the scandal. Some partnerships have already been quietly terminated or scaled back. When a major company becomes associated with this level of scandal, other businesses start distancing themselves to protect their own reputations, explained one business relationship consultant. WWE might find themselves increasingly isolated in the industry as partners decide they can't afford the association. For Seth Rollins personally, this battle has become about much more than just his own career. He's positioning himself as a whistleblower fighting for the rights of all WWE employees who have been mistreated, and his evidence could help other victims seek justice for their own experiences. Seth realizes that this is bigger than just what happened to him, revealed a source close to the former champion. He's fighting for every wrestler who's been buried for political reasons, every employee who's been fired for asking questions, every person who's been too afraid to speak up because they were afraid of retaliation. The legal battle ahead promises to be lengthy and expensive for all parties involved, but Seth appears committed to seeing it through regardless of the personal cost. His decision to prioritize justice over personal convenience could set a precedent for how similar situations are handled in the future. Seth knows that taking on WWE and Triple H is going to cost him years of his life and probably millions in legal fees, explained one source familiar with his decision-making process. But he also knows that if he doesn't fight this battle, nothing will ever change, and other people will continue to suffer the same treatment he received. The evidence that will be presented in any legal proceedings promises to provide an unprecedented look inside WWE's corporate culture and decision-making processes. For the first time, the public may get to see exactly how one of the world's largest entertainment companies really operates behind the scenes. This case could pull back the curtain on WWE in a way that's never happened before, predicted one legal analyst. All those internal emails, recorded conversations, and financial documents that Seth has collected will become part of the public record if this goes to trial. It could be the most comprehensive exposure of WWE's internal operations in company history. The broader implications for the wrestling industry could be transformative, as other companies watch how this situation unfolds and consider whether they need to change their own practices to avoid similar problems. The case could establish new standards for how wrestling companies treat their employees and manage their finances. This case could be a watershed moment for the wrestling industry, observed one industry historian. Just like other industries have had to clean up their acts after major scandals, wrestling might be forced to adopt better standards of corporate governance and employee treatment. As this story continues to develop, the wrestling world watches to see whether Seth Rollins can successfully take on one of the most powerful figures in sports entertainment and emerge victorious. His battle represents more than just one man's fight for justice, it's a test of whether accountability and transparency can triumph over corruption and intimidation. The outcome will likely determine not just Seth's future, but the future of WWE itself and potentially the entire wrestling industry. If he succeeds in exposing the corruption and holding the responsible parties accountable, it could usher in a new era of transparency and fairness in professional wrestling. But if Triple H and WWE succeed in destroying Seth's credibility and silencing his revelations, it will send a chilling message to anyone else who might consider speaking out about misconduct in the wrestling business. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the entire industry is watching to see which vision of the future will ultimately prevail. For now, Seth Rollins stands alone against one of the most powerful machines in sports entertainment, armed with nothing but evidence, determination, and a belief that the truth will ultimately prevail. Whether that's enough to overcome years of accumulated power and influence remains to be seen, but his courage in taking on this fight has already inspired others to consider speaking out about their own experiences. The Monday Night Messiah may have lost his WWE career, but his fight for justice is just beginning, and the revelations yet to come promise to shake the wrestling world to its very foundations.